Welcome to the Invested Dads Podcast, simplifying financial topics so that you can take action and make your financial situation better. Helping you to understand the current world of financial planning and investments, here are your hosts, Josh Robb and Austin Wilson.
This is a good muffin, man.
Where'd you get it? Homemade?
I think Aldi, Kroger, I don't know.
Oh, no.
It's no donut, but
those big muffins are great.
I'm calling it a health donut.
It's good.
It's a muffin for
Muffins are good. They're the wrapped version of a donut, you know.
It's the baked version of a donut instead of fried.
Yeah, that's true.
Okay. As soon as I finish this muffin, we can go.
It's all right. You're making me hungry.
All right. Hey. Welcome back to the Invested Dads Podcast. Today, Josh and I are still recording this podcast from our homes, but we are aiming to bring you some fresh insights into the ongoing global coronavirus pandemic. So, Josh, take it away. How are things looking out there?
All right. So first, let's kind of look at what the cases and number of deaths are both here in the U.S. and globally. Today is the 25th, March 25th. So that's kind of a reference point. So these numbers are as of that day. So globally, there are 427,593 cases.
Wow, that's a lot.
Yes. And total deaths are up to 19,313. So just over 19,000 deaths globally. That brings the percentage or the fatality rate to 4.5% globally.
Wow.
So, obviously the hotspots, Italy and Spain and France over in Europe are the big ones. Iran they have a very high mortality rate, over 7.5%. So that's, another hotspot. And then of course the U.S., we are growing quickly.
I think we're now in third.
Yeah. And so part of that is we've upped our testing. And so, as we test more people, we will find that, the coronavirus is a little more widespread. We have 53,694 cases here in the U.S. with 722 deaths. So our fatality rate is actually 1.3%. So it is lower than the average, but we're also earlier into this coronavirus. So, we will definitely be seeing the number of cases growing and the number of deaths. So kind of what we're watching, though, is that what you want to see is, that kind of plateau at some point. And hopefully this isolation, which we'll talk a little more about, will help. But as we are doing more testing, we're going to find more and more cases. Because right now, the testing is people that are, very high risk are the ones getting tested. So obviously New York, over half of the cases of the country are there, and they're doubling about every 3 days. And then
Pretty
California,
quick.
In California, the governor there was saying they think maybe 80% of the people are going to get it was his.
And he
prediction.
said this morning that he expects the shutdown to last 8 to 12 weeks in California.
Wow.
So that's a long
time inside. And then obviously
Washington also has a lot with obviously it started with some retirement homes.
Yes. So we are working through that. I mean, that was kind of the initial place. And so they're kind of one of the early ones, so that we can watch how that works and how that spreads there. Testing has been ramped up. We're getting more and more cases being confirmed just because of the more availability of the test. The scary part, though, is most people will have little or no symptoms. And so they're spreading the virus without even doing so willingly or knowingly. And so that's the biggest concern, is that younger people, especially kids and young adults who maybe just say, I have a slight cold, go out, spread that virus because it's very contagious. I listened to a podcast, Austin, I think you listened to it too. They had a scientist on talking through that, but the airborne, it can last a while just in the air. It's so light and small. It's, they're microscopic. It floats in the air in a sense, and is, somebody may walk by and you may walk into this not realizing it because it just hangs out in the air. Then when it lands on a surface, it can last another, 3, 5, 7 days, depending on the surface. And so you can get contact without knowing it.
That was the 10X
Yes.
podcast with the DNA scientist.
Yep.
We'll link that in the show notes. It was extremely informative and interesting. I will put the disclaimer out there that the audio quality, because of the voice over IP demand that was happening, was pretty tricky. So just know that when you're listening to it. But yeah, we will link that in the show notes. It was pretty fascinating. The overall, they talked about how anywhere that things can get in your body, so your nose, your mouth, I think he said even your eyes.
Yes, eyes are
areas where this thing can kind of get in and cover that stuff up.
Yep. And then he kind of walks through how it impacts you, how it impacts your cells, and where it goes. It was very informative. But in hearing that too, the best practices are just try not to touch your face, right? Keep your hands clean, avoid contact with your face, because yes, you can inhale it, but the more often you're getting exposed is from you putting that into your body through contact. So
I even heard that it was recommended that men shave their beards during this.
What? Huh?
Because beards are big, while they're flavor savers.
Yes.
For sure. They're also germ savers. And it's hard to not groom that beard with your hand, which is right by your mouth.
Yes, that's true. So maybe we'll have to
look at trimming
it up.
It's a bear market beard.
Oh, man. I may have to trim mine.
Yeah. So that I was like, my wife told me that, and I was like, I don't know how I feel about that. I think I'm going to keep it, but I just won't ever leave my house.
Yeah, that works too. So, Austin, there's some countries like China and Japan and South Korea. They've really been very effective at slowing at least the growth of new cases, better so than us or Italy. What do you think's going on there? What are some of the things?
Yeah, I think there's a couple reasons there. I think number one, think about China specifically. They already lived through SARS, bird flu, H1N1, all those things. And the people over there, they know what it takes to stop the spread quickly, and they're willing to do whatever it takes. That is pretty much stay home and don't go out and don't do anything. And it's worked. If you look at the growth rates on these things, specifically in Asian countries, having been through these things before, they've been able to kind of slow things down. I also think the second part of that is that people in these countries are much less caught up in the thoughts that the government's trying to take away their freedoms, as a lot of Americans are. And I feel that this is really a big risk for our slowing and recovery, because Americans kind of feel entitled to do whatever they want. And when they're told or asked not to, they start thinking it's time to assemble a militia or something. Like, there's so many people like freaking out on Twitter, like, oh, go buy ammo, and this is the government.
Yeah.
Yada, yada,
like
yada.
in China, the government has, they control a lot more. When they say and do things, they have that threat of the military behind them, that it's been historically shown that they will use it if people dissent.
And we just are so against being told what to do because we're free, that when we get told what to do as a country, not necessarily me specifically, but as a country,
I do what I want.
It seems threatening. It seems threatening of our way of life and the way that our country is operating, and people are not liking it. So people are outraged right now just by being told to stay home. And I think that is a risk for us, because people are not going to be willing to do what they're asked to do. And it's going to continue to spread this longer than it has in those other economies where people were more willing to do what they're told.
Yeah, definitely. So, President Trump, obviously, he's been in the news. He's made kind of some predictions and thoughts. One of the things he says he wants to see is the economy up and running by Easter, which is April 12th.
That's coming up.
It is a short time away. And so, obviously everybody wants the economy up and running as soon as possible. I don't think that's an obscure statement, but the fact that the president says that, carries a little bit more weight than if I said, I wish we were out ready to go for Easter. And so, part of that I think has to do with just this desire to minimize the impact on the economy of this lockdown that we're in.
Yeah, for sure.
But the other part too is, we're getting closer and closer to the next election. And historically speaking, an incumbent president who is looking for re-election needs a strong economy. That's just historically speaking, when we look at elections, and the percent of those that are reelected in bad economies is pretty much zero.
Right.
And so there's probably some underlying thoughts there. But overall, I think, if you ask a senator, if you ask a governor, anybody will say, as soon as we can safely get up and running, we need to get those small businesses, everybody back to the jobs and get the economy humming again. But the balance that is, you don't want to go too soon, because then you'll just restart this whole thing.
I know. I kind of fear that, people are going to try and get back too soon, and that's going to, so things start to look better, and then people kind of push to get back and open things up, and then it just starts over again.
Yeah.
And we're going to be back in a worse place than we would have been if we would have just waited another week or 2 or 3 or whatever to kind of ease
because
into
you could go 2 weeks before you show symptoms and still be contagious. That's the thing is, if we're doing a 15-day lockdown, that's a day over 2 weeks. And so if I didn't get the virus until this week and I'm still a week before showing us symptoms when I go out in public, you could start spreading it again.
Right. Yeah. I think it's just, this is a point where, it is going to be important for both sides of the aisle, the White House, everyone to kind of not only try and look out for the economy, but listen to the health experts around the world, because they've seen this in other countries and how it's worked, and they're trying to do what's best for us, and everyone needs to work together. It's all hands on deck at this point.
Yes, definitely.
So I guess the markets have been all over the place lately, right? So it's safe to say that the virus is already having a big impact on the economy. So the economy flows through to corporate earnings, which drive stock prices. Well, that uncertainty as to the extent of the situation has created a lot of volatility. Lots of big up, big down swings all over the place. So I guess to update on what is now, officially we're in the bear market. Right now, the S&P 500 is down about 27% from all-time highs as of this morning on 325, before the market opened, I think.
Yeah.
So that is not quite 30% because of a good rally we've had the day before, but we're still down 25+%. The Dow's down 28% still from all-time highs, and the NASDAQ down 24%. So pretty deep into bear market territory there. But as of right now, this is 325, and it's about 10 in the morning. Markets are up a little bit. Based
the Dow's
on the
up,
news
the S&P's down just slightly, but they're all pretty much flat.
Yep. So this is really based on the fiscal stimulus bill that we'll talk about here in a little bit. But I think that there's a handful of things that we're looking for as we are managing investments specifically. And that is, number one, we want U.S. confirmed cases to slow. But we do think the market is really going to bottom before the cases peak. Slowing is good, though.
Yeah, you wanted to see that trend. Yeah,
exactly. So like that, slow the curve and kind of taper things off a little bit. We also think that this is a market where it's really driven by sentiment right now. It's not necessarily completely fundamental driven as things typically are over the long run. This is a very sentiment driven market, and as of now, the bears are still kind of in control. So we think this is an environment where some technical analysis could be important, and we're watching a couple technical indicators that really say who's in control. And right now, bears are still driving the bus. We're also looking for the U.S. dollar to weaken compared to its counterparts. And we believe the market's actually going to tell us the government has provided enough stimulus, which hopefully through this bill, that will help a lot. And that will cause the dollar to start to weaken. We also feel that crude oil is probably going to bottom. And when we see that bottom, that's going to provide kind of a floor and a good point to see that hopefully we can get a rebound for the rest of the broader market from that. So those are a handful of things that I'm looking for, and we're keeping track of every day in our daily job.
Yeah. So you mentioned like things that you're watching, looking for. Now, I know we've been talking here at our office. You guys, Adam, Tony, the investment committee, you guys are going to be doing something new. It's called some sort of thing where you're tracking the bear market. People can jump in on it. What's that called? Tell me a little bit about that.
So as of today, when this episode comes out at 4:00 Eastern, Tony and Adam and I are going to be hosting a call, which is going to really continue every week through this bear market, called Bear Market Brews. And it's going to be a virtual happy hour where we're going to talk about all things markets, economy, coronavirus, those kind of things, and things that we're watching in real time, as well as just sharing our favorite brews and just having a good, relaxing conversation about this kind of thing. So just a kind of additional way to show some things that we're looking at and some things that might be worth taking a look at in the broader market. So that starts today at 4 p.m. We'll throw a link in the show notes to our website where you can sign up for that webinar, and we look forward to having you.
And if you can't make it, you guys are recording this so somebody can listen to it later as well.
Correct. Yes, it will be recorded for replay as well. So I alluded to it earlier, but fiscal stimulus is a big sticking point and thing that we've been looking forward to getting kind of figured out in this economy that is increasingly at risk from this virus. So I think from the outside looking in, it really hasn't been surprising that Republicans and Democrats have been unable to put together a bill that could pass both the House and the Senate until recently. Now, as of late last night and today, on the 25th, we have news that while it hasn't been completely voted on and approved, we're definitely headed that direction with about a $2 trillion fiscal stimulus package. Now, fiscal stimulus package is really looking at the government's spending of money to kind of boost up the economy, as opposed to monetary policy, which we'll talk about in a second. So there's some examples of this fiscal stimulus package of about $2 trillion are $500 billion to back loans and aid companies, $350 billion for small business aid, $150 billion for hospitals and other healthcare providers, and that totals $1 trillion. And then one other trillion is direct stimulus of $1,200 per adult and $500 per child for income up to $75K for individuals and $150K for couples or married filing jointly tax filers is in direct stimulus. So this will be checks that comes in the mail. I think that they're still targeting maybe that April 6th or something like that.
So that's like 2 weeks away.
Yeah, it's coming. So that is kind of the biggest news, as well as there's some more loosening of unemployment issues with claiming that and deferral of taxes back to at least July. There are some restraints on corporations, whether they're going to use some of this quote unquote bailout money. They can't use it for buybacks, and there's a period where they can't use it after even they're done paying it back. But it's very, very interesting. So that is what drove, really the optimism of that drove the markets up for a record day since the 1930s yesterday, where the Dow closed over 2,000 points higher and like 11%. So
That's
it was
crazy.
a pretty good day.
Yeah.
This all in the midst of a bunch of crazy selling the weeks before, but it definitely was an encouraging thing to see some green on the screen for once.
And it comes back to, and we've had that conversation, some of the best up days are positioned around some of the worst down days. And that's part of why, a steady approach, not overreacting and trying to time the market. I mean, you just missed, if you were trying to time in and out, 11% up day that came
Right.
in this middle of down days. And so, it again comes back to having a plan, working it out with a financial advisor, and then sticking to it, because
Right.
no one knows where these up and down days are going to come. And so, in the long run, you need to participate in these up days if you want to see that growth, but you can't try to time in and out.
Yep. So monetary policy is the other side of the equation. So Larry Kudlow yesterday in the evening sometimes said that between the $2 trillion fiscal stimulus bill that they're working out and signing and everything right now, and $4 trillion of monetary policy from the Federal Reserve intervention, that is $6 trillion that we've been able to kind of pull together to save the economy from this virus.
A lot of money
in a couple weeks. So that is a ton of money, and put together very quickly. And I think that that's also raising some eyebrows. As to, hey, how are we going to pay for this in the long run? And B, well, you can't really ask anyone how they're going to pay for things anymore, because we're pretty sure that we just pulled $6 billion out of our back pocket in 2 weeks.
Yeah, 6 trillion.
Did I say trillion or billion?
Billion, but it's trillion.
Oh, yeah, it's trillion with a
But
T. Don't forget
add some
that.
extra zeros onto that.
Yeah, exactly. So as
What are
far
zeros,
as,
right? I mean, they're worth nothing. So
no, you
add some
just
more zeros
add them on at the end. As far as monetary policy goes, at a high level, the Federal Reserve has been doing the best it can to maintain liquidity in the fixed income markets. They've been purchasing a variety of security types in the fixed income market there, while making debt crazy cheap for banks, which really flows to businesses and the consumers. They actually had 2 emergency meetings where they cut rates essentially back down to zero, and to just kind of stimulate any sort of stability and growth in the markets that they can. They're doing things a lot faster than they did in 2008 and 2009. And I think they're doing the right thing. I mean, they're trying to limit the blow as much as possible, and they're taking drastic big actions up front. Now, the question is, what do they do next? If this continues to get worse, they don't really have a lot of levers to pull anymore.
But I mean, their job really is, the biggest job is that liquidity, is to make sure money can flow. And obviously they cut the rates down, but that keeping the liquidity in the fixed income market is huge, because that's really going to be the biggest issue, is because the economy is really being shuttered artificially. It's not that there's a sector causing issues that, okay, my small business is doing fine, and then all of a sudden, no one's buying anything. Like, I need help. And that's that liquidity they have to continue to provide. Now,
Correct.
They can continue to do that through this, buying back all different types of fixed income and bonds and stuff. So they can continue to do that. But you're right, they're out of those other mechanisms to pull. The rates are as low as they can go.
Right.
But in general, as long as they could keep liquidity, I think that'll keep the panic out of the fixed income side of things.
Yeah, well,
for a while.
And if you think about it, so quantitative easing was something that really came into play in the financial crisis, and that is what the Fed is continuing with, the purchases of these fixed income securities. And they have recently said that they did not put a timeline and they did not put a dollar figure.
Yeah, they left it very open.
In the latest iteration of this. They pretty much said that we will do whatever it takes to keep the fixed income markets moving properly. And it's actually theoretically on the table that the Fed would step in for asset purchases on equities. It has never, it has not happened thus far, and they've not talked about doing that specifically, but I would imagine it'll be on the table if things get worse, but that's not really the plan A at this point. But it's really kind of like a QE forever, just kind of as long as we need to ease, the changes in the in the treasury markets and in the fixed income markets, we're going to do it. So I think it's kind of unprecedented to just kind of have a blank check that the Fed is going to do what they're going to do, but that's where we're at right now, and hopefully it will continue to provide some stability in there. So, Josh, we got some news on the 24th, or yesterday as we're recording this, about the 2020 Olympics that were supposed to take place in Tokyo. Fill us in on that.
Yeah, so obviously Japan was set to host. They've been getting ready. They've been building up all the cool stadiums, getting all set for this. Coronavirus shows up, and for a while there was just kind of okay, do we just limit spectators? What are we going to do? And so Prime Minister Abe, he proposed, what if we move it a year until 2021? And so he proposed that to the Olympic Committee. The International Olympic Committee said, yeah, that makes sense, because there's a lot of money involved in Olympics.
Right.
And there's been a lot of expense incurred by Japan. So if they cannot get all the people coming to watch, they're going to be out a ton of money. And so everybody agreed that makes a lot of sense. And so they're moving the Olympics to 2021. So all those people out there that are training, you just get an extra year to get better, I guess.
Or eat a bunch of donuts and lose your edge. That's what I would probably do.
Now, Austin, you've met the Prime Minister, haven't you?
Yeah, I did in 2012. I was over there during college for a month in the summer, and I met Prime Minister Abe before he was elected. He's a cool guy. He is currently the longest-serving prime minister in Japan's history. So, a little fun fact there. But how will this impact business and the economy in Japan specifically, or even around the world?
Yeah, I mean, the Olympics are a big business. I mean, there's a lot of money that moves through, like we said. So, businesses in Japan, they've been predicting their impact of having the Olympics there. So all their expectations are going to need to be readjusted. So negatively this year, the Japanese economy will be impacted, but hopefully it'll just be moved 1 year, so all the things they were hoping would happen this year will be next year. And hopefully because of all this, self-quarantining, there'll be a higher demand for people to actually get out and travel. They want to do some stuff like that. So maybe next year it'll even be better for them from an economic standpoint. Athletes have to train another year, but like you said, the hard part though is, these are, you put a lot of intense training into this, and you don't want to peak too soon. And if you extend that training, there's a chance you could wear some muscles. You could hurt yourself. Right. So you have to really pace yourself in what you're doing and kind of reschedule. How am I going to be prepared and ready for the games if I have an extra
And what about, think about 2024 Olympics now are only 3 years going to be after that one.
Yep.
So you've taken 25% of people's preparation time and all of that out of the next games. So I think that this has some rippling effects.
Yeah, it will.
For sure.
And then, of course, there's a lot of companies that are really involved within the Olympics, so you have like Nike and Adidas, Under Armour, all those ones you think about for apparel and shoes. They're all there. And then obviously the TV stations that have the deals, all that stuff is built in, and they're selling commercials and all that stuff. All that's got to be pushed another year down the road. So there's a lot of impact that spreads just beyond watching the games.
So
obviously, we talked about that in our 2020 bold predictions. We're going to have to
sound a little too
that.
bold. Yeah, they sound a little too bold at this point.
So we're going to push that down. Maybe we'll readjust them next year.
That's right. So we'll link that episode in the show notes if you want to go see how we got the 2020 Olympics.
We were wrong on a lot of that stuff.
Yeah, that's right. So we're recording this in Findlay, Ohio. We're in Ohio. Josh, what is going on specifically around here?
So our Governor DeWine, he has been one of the leading governors when it comes to implementing restrictions or limitations within the state. And so he's one of the first that had a closing down and self-quarantining. The schools were shutting down. And so he has upped that and has since kind of moved everything to all non-essential businesses are now closed. And there's a huge list. I'm not going to go through all of it, but in a sense, if you're not essential, it was kind of at your own discretion before. Now it's, hey, you're done. You're closed. And so there's really not an option. On top of that, they're also saying all travel is limited to essential reasons only. So I need to go get food. I need to go check on maybe a loved one who is in need, an elderly or something. And so they're really limiting and, in a sense, removing that decision from all of us to say, okay, we were letting you self-quarantine. Now it's kind of a step up. You need to be at home. You need to be quarantined. And we're going to eliminate that temptation to get out and do anything else. Now they still encourage you to actually get outside, get some fresh air, get some sunlight. A lot of the parks and stuff are opened still, so you can get out and walk around, but they're just encouraging you to stay a safe distance from everybody else. If you have kids, it's great when the weather's nice to get out and let them burn some energy. It wasn't DeWine's decision, but here in Ohio, spring has been postponed, and snow will remain in effect for a while longer, apparently, because it snowed 2 days ago. It's ridiculous.
We had an inch or two just
ridiculous.
In the middle of the evening, and I don't know when I was expecting that, but it's almost April, and we were still getting snow.
Has there ever been a lawsuit against that stinking groundhog and his bad predictions? Because he's ruining my life.
Puxatawny Phil, you better lawyer up.
All right. So speaking of a little bit of a lighter side of things, I got some dad jokes of the week for you. These are Corona related. All right.
Gotcha.
All right. Okay. First, I'm going to tell you a Corona joke. All right. You ready? But you're going to have to wait 2 weeks to get it. You get it? Because it takes a while to show up. That's
Josh.
All right. Honestly, did I tell you the joke about the germs, though?
No.
Okay. I'm not going to anyways. I don't want you to spread it around. And the last one, this is for my kids because this is their favorite meal. What did the sick parent make for their kids for lunch?
I'm guessing not Corona because that would be terribly irresponsible.
No, they didn't. They made them mac and sneeze.
Seriously, though, mac and cheese at the grocery store right now, gone.
Oh,
you cannot buy
that's
box.
an essential. That's an essential.
You cannot buy box mac and cheese, which is so sad. Like, we have some right now, but my daughter loves box mac and cheese so much.
Who doesn't?
I mean, she eats it like every day.
Yeah. Well, my little 2-year-old who weighs like 20 pounds, she'll eat her weight in mac and cheese at lunch. It's crazy.
And I love me some mac and cheese. So I get it, people. It's macaroni and cheese is an essential. So I guess we're in an interesting environment. We're working from home. We're spending a lot of time with our families. What are you doing to kind of, what are some interesting things you're doing in this kind of forced time of being home? How are you handling that? How's your family handling that, Josh?
Yeah. And, one of our coworkers, Jess, she has a blog, and we'll link it in the show notes. And she wrote kind of a thing on how to stay healthy during this self-quarantine, which she had a lot of great ideas. But for my family, there's 4 kids now at home. My wife and I, we're trying to help them with their schoolwork, getting those things done. But we found the positive impact of this, because I always try to look on the positive side as much as I can. It slowed our life down. All the extra activities we do, the sports and the music and all the things in the evenings after work that take up our time have been canceled. And so we've been home as a family, and we've been trying to be as deliberate in spending time together as possible. And so, it's those things of playing games, sitting around the table for dinner together, which doesn't always happen when you're busy. We're working on a puzzle together, and it's great. And we just finished 900-piece puzzle, which was a lot of work and a lot of fun. When we got all done, we were missing 2 pieces, which drove me nuts. Oh, I was so mad. But it was a fun process to get there. What about you, Austin?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. So I really put my office together about a year ago really nicely, and I pretty much used it to study or to play guitar or do whatever. And I really had no intention of working from home in it. But I really am glad that I put these little sound panels on the wall, and I put a nice door that latches, and it's been really good to get work done. It's really nice to be home, like you said, in the evenings with my family. It's just a lot of good family time where I can help out with my daughter and play a lot and do fun things like that. And yeah, we're doing okay. We've played some games. I think my wife was beating me when we quit playing Rummy the other day. I usually quit when I'm losing. And I actually sat down to read a book for fun the other day.
Wow.
Yeah, it was great. So I think it's kind of like you said, it's making us slow down and just know that, your family is important and enjoy it. So just enjoy some time where you're not being forced to run around and to be worn out because of that. There's other reasons that people are stressed right now for sure, but just to take this time to focus on the positive side of it, and I think it's going to be okay.
Yeah.
We are watching some interesting shows on Netflix
What are you
right
watching?
now. So there's this show called 100 Humans on Netflix, and it's like they picked a sample of 100 people, all different ages, all different demographics from across the country, and they brought them into one place. And I don't know how long they took to do this, but there's a lot of episodes where they're doing a lot of finding out why humans do things or feel the way they do about things. And it's just fascinating. Like one of the things was like, do humans respond better to rewards? So the opportunity to get rewards or the threat of being tortured? Like, just now, it wasn't like crazy stuff, but it was like at a high level, do you respond more to good or bad encouragement? So just so many things you don't think about. So we're kind of nerding out on that a little bit.
Interesting.
It's a good time. We're really kind of doing okay. Obviously, we still miss some things about going out and doing things or going to a restaurant or going to see family or whatever, but we're just kind of taking it day by day, and I think we're hanging in there.
Good. Now, I will say, like you said, it does wear on you after a while. You're home, you're with the people you love, but when you have friends you'd love to see, if you're used to hanging out with people, it can get hard. So some of the things is that podcast we mentioned, 10X podcast, that he had some ideas too, but in general, it's just take care of your mental health, and your physical health.
Yeah.
And he said one of the biggest things is sleep. Like if you staying healthy, getting enough sleep is essential.
Right.
That's huge. And then obviously just staying in shape. It's hard because, in this, knowing we're going to be stuck in the house, we filled up our pantry pretty good. There's a lot of good food in there. Oh my goodness. So pace yourself. Moderation, I think, is what I'm always a fan of.
Josh,
and I got to remind myself of that as I look, and there's a whole box of Cheez-Its that I want to eat that maybe I just have a couple handfuls.
They make pizza flavored Cheez-Its.
Oh, I did not know that.
I don't know if I should have told you that, but I got to really
break
good.
Quarantine to go get that, I guess.
But some of these things that you're talking about, they're not just going to help you in, surviving, being home all the time, but they're going to help your body be healthier, not just to fight off COVID-19, should that be something you come into contact or whatever with, but also any other. This is still cold and flu season.
Yeah.
So just be smart and take care of yourself, and your body is going to thank you.
Yep. And for me, pretty much my whole life consists of Frozen 2. It's on repeat in our house constantly. And so, it's a good movie, but and the songs are great, but I find myself humming it to myself when I'm up in my office in my bedroom and no one's here. And I'm like, why is it just stuck in my head all the time?
Hey, that is all right. Well, as always, we thank you guys for being here with us and listening to our weekly coronavirus update. Just remember, it's going to be okay. We're going to get through this together. We're going to pull together as a country and as a world. And I think we're going to come out stronger at the other end of this. It is a good time to be alive, and it's going to get better from here. So as always, check out our free gift to you. It's a brief list of 8 principles of timeless investing. These are overarching investment themes meant to keep you on track to meet your long-term goals. Really important in times like this when things seem really choppy, up and down all the time, really uncertainty in the markets. So check that out.
Also, make sure if you like this podcast, subscribe to it, leave us a review if you would like. If you have any ideas, obviously we're doing updates on the coronavirus and everything going on right now. But if there's any topics or anything you'd like us to talk about, shoot us an email over at hello@theinvesteddads.com. And also, don't forget it, check out tonight, the Bear Market Brews, which launches tonight at 4 p.m. If you would like to subscribe and get the email notification and the link to get into that webinar, go to our office website, which is hzcapital.com/BMB for Bear Market Brews. All right. We'll also have a link on our website as well.
Yeah. And remember, just be smart, think of others, don't touch your face, and wash your hands.
Wash your hands a lot.
Thanks for being here, guys.
All right. Thanks. Bye. Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Invested Dads podcast. This episode has ended, but your journey towards a better financial future doesn't have to. Head over to theinvesteddads.com to access all the links and resources mentioned in today's show. If you enjoyed this episode and we had a positive impact on your life, leave us a review, click subscribe, and don't miss the next episode. Josh Robb and Austin Wilson work for Hicks & Zerker Capital Management. All opinions expressed by Josh, Austin, or any podcast guests are solely their own opinions and do not reflect the opinions of Hicks & Zerker Capital Management. This podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be relied upon for investment decisions. Clients of Hicks & Zerker Capital Management may maintain positions in the securities discussed in this podcast. There is no guarantee that the statements, opinions, or forecasts provided herein will prove to be correct. Past performance may not be indicative of future results. Indices are not available for direct investment. Any investor who attempts to mimic the performance of an index would incur fees and expenses which would reduce returns. Securities investing involves risk, including the potential for loss of principal. There is no assurance that any investment plan or strategy will be successful.